Hello, so in this video, I'm going to show you how I can create a brand new data management application from scratch, just using my voice. So in the previous video, I showed you how to do the same thing using a graphical model editor. This time, I added Google speech recognition API to the editor, so I can do the same thing using my voice. So we're going to create a simple test application. And just to show you that it doesn't exist already, if I try to log in, I get an error. Okay, so now we go to the application editor, I log in, and I just have to start speaking. You can see the result of the speech recognition at the bottom here. So let's get started. Could you please create a new application called test? All right, so something happened. We have an application called test, and there's a default database connection created. And pointed to a schema called test on the default database, which is my SQL running on localhost. All right. Please create a package called test. Add a new type called person. Add an integer attribute called age. Add a new tab called city. Add a new type called city. Add an attribute called zip code. Add a text attribute called notes. Select person. Add a new reference attribute called city and set reference to city. All right. So that's a very simple application, but it took only 5 sentences to do that. And so we have a package, which is a group of related data types. And we have 2 data types, person and city. They will come with a default name attribute, which we can change, but in this case, we'll leave it here. We added an age attribute for the person, which is an integer. We've added a zip code and a notes attribute to the city, which in this case, notes is a text, which is going to be a text box. And more importantly, we added a reference attribute to city, to person called city, which is a reference to a city. All right, so now we just have to deploy the application. Please deploy the application. All right, it's done. So now, if we go to, try to log into the application again, it's working. So I have a test package. It contains my 2 types, person and city. And there's no data there. So let's try to create some data. And again, I can do that using my voice. Please create a new city called Melbourne and set notes to the most livable city in the world and set zip code to 3000. All right. So in one sentence, I was able to create a data object and populate 3 different fields, right? So that's a pretty fluent way of doing that. And you can see the result of the NLU at the bottom here, right? Okay, let's continue. Please create a new city called Sydney and set notes to the beautiful harbor city and set zip code to 2000. Right, and that worked, even though I did a mistake. Still worked, and I was able to again create a new data type, a new data object. And now I can actually query the data. I can say, could I please get a list of cities? Right, so I get the list of cities, get the city called Melbourne. And I get the details of the city called Melbourne. So now I create some people, some persons. Please create a new person called Jack and set city to Sydney and set age to 20. Right. So in this case, I was able to create the data, even though the city is actually a reference. So if you look at what happened in the data here, we found that we found the reference to the city. It's called Sydney. Right. Let's do a couple more. Please create a new person called John and set city to Melbourne and set age to 30. Right. Please create a new person called Peter and set city to Melbourne and set age to 50. Oh, this time I didn't quite get the age. Set age to 50. Right, cool. And of course, now we can actually create the data. I'd like to see a list of persons. Could you please get me a list of persons in Sydney? Could you please get a list of persons in Melbourne? Get me a list of persons in Melbourne age 50. All right. So you can see that it's a very easy way to query the data. And again, all the NLU logs is at the bottom here, where we can actually find, why. So we get the explanation of why we get that list of people, right? But for example, we can improve them. So because everything is coming from the semantics that are in the model that we just created. So for example, if I ask, please get me a list of people, we don't know what the people is because it's not in the model. We have persons in the model, so we can change that. So we go to the model and we go to persons and we add concepts. So with these concepts that are related to this data type. So in this case, we're going to add people, right? So let's have to deploy the model again. And now I'll go back to the application. I do have to log out to get the new model. But now if I do, please get me a list of people. Now I get people because people is associated with the person data type, right? So hopefully you find this demonstration interesting. I think it's a pretty powerful way of creating applications without not only without coding, but even typing anything. You don't even need a keyboard, right? And then you can you can again query the data, create the data, and query it, and using just your voice. And this is a pretty simple application, but you can create much more complex application, including lots of different types of relationship like aggregation, composition, inheritance. All these different things is supported by the platform. So thank you for watching this video.